We have troubling news for those who treasure Galveston Bay.
And Only on Fox investigation has uncovered undeniable evidence that tons of cancer-causing dioxin waste is stored just feet from the Intracoastal waterway.
After months of digging, our Greg Groogan is breaking the story.
Just south of the Galveston Causeway, not far from splendid bayside homes, the terrain along the Intracoastal alters, with modest grass-covered levees rising from the shoreline. What lies behind is beyond the casual boater's line of sight, but from the air, all is revealed. A massive chain of grotesque storage ponds, each filled with millions of gallons of toxic sludge. There are 32 ponds in all. The collection of unnaturally black lagoons stretches as far as the eye can see, and they've been there for more than 40 years. Largely forgotten, they came to the attention of Fox 26 because Dr. Kent Hood decided to blow the whistle on what he believes is an enormous and ongoing threat to public safety.
They wanted me to look at, what do we do with these sludges? We know we're not doing the right thing.
Hood is talking about waste from the Simpson, Pasadena paper mill where he worked as a chemical engineer. Waste which contained the cancer-causing compound known as dioxin. Unbound now by confidentiality restraints, Hood says the contaminated sludge was loaded by the ton onto barges and dumped by McGinnis Industrial Maintenance Company into unlined open pits along Hall's Bayou. While the dumping violated no state law at the time, Hood contends McGinnis should have invested in recommended environmental safeguards, especially in relation to closure of the pits.
They did not use standard practices. They were negligent and, I would say, beyond reckless.
As proof the sludge was toxic, Hood preserved these 1992 storage recommendations and test results from the environmental consulting firm RMT. Those tests detected alarming levels of dioxin in paper mill waste headed to the McGinnis pits. Hood claims he ordered additional tests that year as well, which probed deeper into the pits.
And the sludges were, later I found out, parts per billion range.
By the early 1990s, the evidence in regard to dioxin's impact on human health was mounting. It was a known carcinogen and proven to cause developmental problems in infants and infertility. The primary way people are exposed to dioxin is through the food supply, primarily fish. But between 1966 and 1994, when the pits closed, anyone who questioned the safety of the waste was assured by McGinnis that the sludge it stored was harmless, posing no threat to humans or wildlife. Documents obtained by Fox 26 show in 1993, McGinnis was still making the claim on the record before the Texas Water Commission and successfully persuading environmental regulators.
The idea of putting it in an open pit on the side of a bay and thinking that's okay? I mean, it's stupid on its face.
25 years ago, former state representative Mike Martin helped lead the fight to close down the McGinnis pits and says the RMT test results confirm his worst fears.
It was asked at every single meeting I had. And I got lied to. And that's unacceptable because the damage, the harm, the risk to the family sitting at the dinner table cannot be underestimated in any way.
State records also show that back in 1992, well-known environmental lawyer Jim Blackburn unsuccessfully pushed to have McGinnis prosecuted for dumping toxic sludge without a solid waste permit.
Basically, there was deceit going on, if not outright lying, and I think we need to get it cleared up.
Compelled by Hood's evidence to search for more, Fox 26 reviewed records accumulated by the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. What we discovered in this document is deeply troubling. Testing commissioned by McGinnis in 2009, which revealed levels of dioxin contamination in 3 ponds that were 5 times higher and more toxic than those found at the notorious EPA Superfund site known as the San Jacinto River Waste Pits. What environmentalists had long suspected has now been confirmed with hard data from the waste company who did the dumping.
Clearly, there's a dioxin issue at this site.
Again, Attorney Blackburn.
The fishermen of Galveston Bay ought to rise up in mutiny against the government if they don't do something about this.
Isolated behind locked gates on a large swath of private land, the giant dump site is approachable only by water. Dozens of bird species can be seen flying in and out of the contamination zone. Along the Intracoastal and other parts of Galveston Bay, Texas Parks and Wildlife has issued seafood consumption advisories. The principal chemical of concern, dioxin. There's really no telling how many anglers have fished along the Intracoastal, never realizing that just beyond those berms was more than 200 acres of toxic sludge contaminated with dioxin. McGinnis and the TCEQ claim the dioxin is safely stored in the pits and hasn't reached the bay. But Bruce Bodson, a scientist and attorney with Galveston Baykeeper, believes there's simply no way these levees safely contain the sludge held within from storm surge from hurricanes like Ike.
Water gets over, things get churned up, material comes out. The entire bay system has a dioxin advisory. All of these sites and the mills themselves have contributed over time.
McGinnis, which is a holding of Houston-based Waste Management, declined our interview request and offered no response when provided the whistleblower's test results. The company did, however, offer this statement. Measured levels of dioxin are typical of decades-old legacy waste from that period. The facility was certified closed more than a decade ago. The material continues to be safely contained, and TCEQ confirms that the ongoing maintenance of the site continues to be appropriate. As for oversight, since confirmation of dioxin contamination at the site more than 7 years ago, TCEQ has allowed McGinnis to self-inspect the sludge pits on an annual basis and submit a report. Advocates for better containment say the current course is risky at best.
We have not seen the bad storm that's coming.
We need a buffer between this area and people and their food sources.
This needs to be an emergency priority.
On a bay where Texans have built homes collectively worth billions and treasure the health of native wildlife, people must now decide if they're truly protected from a compound among the most lethal and persistent on the planet. On Galveston Bay, Greg Groogan, Fox 26 News.